BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Today we're going to be talking about a case that I had wanted to mention for a while, but I didn't exactly know how to go about it. And that is the case of Christine Mack By, otherwise known as Christy Mack, and the assault that she received at the hands of her now ex-lover, War Machine. And just a quick intro about that. He's often referred to as War Machine in the press. What happened was, War Machine was an MMA fighter, and TNA Wrestling did not want him using the name War Machine because they said that it was the trademark nickname of the wrestler Rhino from TNA. So what he did was he legally changed his name to War Machine to get around that type of trademark issue. The first time I had ever found out about him, it was because of that. There was just some article going around about some guys legally changing his name to War Machine to get around this type of trademark thing, if you want to call it a trademark with somebody's name. Then he would become much more well-known for something not even about MMA fighting, not even about naming rights, about a very vicious assault that happened to his ex-lover, Christy Mack. Now, after the assault, I knew that there was an assault that took place, but I heard that War Machine had written a letter talking about some men's rights things, making some very bold claims, saying stuff like the oppression of men is greater than what the Jews experienced in the concentration camps, and curiosity got the best of me. This was all about 3 years ago, mind you. I decided to just get on Google, see what he had to say, but then, instead, I didn't find a copy of the letter. What I found instead was some of the details that his ex-lover, Christy Mack, suffered during that assault. Christine Mack By, who is known as Christy Mack, suffered a broken nose, lost and broken teeth, damaged liver, broken bones in her face, and a fractured rib. And that list came from the Daily Mail. What I was really looking for was a letter that Christy Mack had written in the hospital. And once I read that one, I was just like, I don't care what this guy, Jon Koppenhaver, War Machine, whatever he wants to call himself, I don't care what he had to say about anything. When you actually sort of hear some of the details about the abuses, yes, indeed, Christy Mack wrote a very long, detailed letter of her own in the hospital addressing the world after she had been assaulted by Jon Koppenhaver, also known as War Machine. And the thing is, though, not only did she receive all of those things, including the ruptured liver, but he held her down, cut off her hair with a dull knife to the point where the blade broke, stabbing it into her skull even. He punched her multiple times in the face while she was in and out of consciousness. He went through her phone, started deleting contacts in her phone that he thought that she shouldn't be talking to. And then, there's an episode of this on True Crime Daily. They still have the little Crime Watch Daily icon in the corner, so a little bit older when they're using the older name. And they even glossed over a very big detail. When they said there was an attempted sexual assault that took place, what Christy Mack had written in her own letter was that Jon Koppenhaver, War Machine, tried to sexually assault her, but he wasn't able to get hard. So in frustration, he looked around the room and saw that he had done something very destructive and that he would probably be in some serious legal trouble. Bear in mind that Christy Mack was stark naked at the time, and she's just covered by what she described as a dog blanket. I believe that's the blanket that their dogs would have used, that her dogs would have used. So Jon Koppenhaver goes downstairs to get a sharper knife, saying that he's going to kill her with it. And when he was out of the room, that was the opportunity that Christy Mack used to escape, to run away, to flee, and to exit the home wearing nothing but that dog blanket. I believe she hopped over a fence and was able to get to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor called 911. Prior to the assault on Christy Mack, a friend was staying with her for the night. And I believe he was an ex-lover as well, but they wanted to be very clear that he was just a friend, and that's really when the assault took place. Jon Koppenhaver, being Christy Mack's ex-boyfriend, had a key to the house. He was going to surprise her for the weekend, and he came in and he saw another man in her bed, so he punched him in the face 15 times, and then that guy gathered his things and got out, and they were just asking him, like, why didn't you call the police? And he simply says that he was just rather stunned by the whole series of events. But all I have to say about that is that if Christy Mack isn't blaming him for anything, which she is openly not, then I won't either. Now, this just really goes to show you that it was a very big, eye-opening examination for the concept of abusive relationships and how abusive relationships can be taken out of control. Because what Christy Mack was saying following these abuses is that it didn't start immediately, right? It started about 3 months into their relationship, when she was actually in a relationship with Jon Koppenhaver. And I gotta tell you, that's just the way it is. Even True Crime Daily said that's the way it is. That's how these abusers lure people into their lives. Back when I was in college, I even had this one ex-girlfriend, and I would always tell people, some of these, like, really far-out stories about nasty things that she had done, and so many people were asking me, like, well, why were you attracted to somebody like that in the first place? And my response was simple. Just like, it didn't start immediately. It was about a month into the relationship before a lot of the very bizarre and negative and just very nasty things really took place. And I'm talking only about emotional things. I would never, ever compare that to Christy Mack and the abuses that she experienced. But what you see is, for the first month, the first 2 months, or the first 3 months, in her case, the abuse really isn't taking place yet. There might be warning signs. There definitely will be warning signs that people can look for. But it's like the abuser lures the person in, and once they're involved with them, once they're somewhat attached and connected to them, then the abuse takes place. Jumping over to something from TMZ.com that was also shared on a website called Web Pro News, we have some things that Christy Mack wanted to share. While in the hospital, she chose to document her injuries on social media because she wanted to speak out about violence, and while she had a lot of supporters, some of whom donated money to help with her dental surgeries. And by the way, about that, because she lost numerous amounts of teeth, she lost multiple teeth, we should say, some were broken and some she lost completely. She went through numerous facial surgeries to repair the damage that she received after this assault. There were also plenty of people backing War Machine, and some of them were of the opinion that she had been at fault, whether by not leaving him when the abuse began or because of her lifestyle. Well, about her lifestyle, they're talking about how she is an adult film actress, and now she is I believe she's no longer shooting, and she's not involved with the adult film industry anymore, so I saw on one source. But about this, I definitely think there is a certain connection to some of the men's rights groups that might be involved with that. As we mentioned, War Machine penned that letter. But I would say, even to the credit of the men's rights groups, they completely condemned War Machine's actions toward Christy Mack. I remember that very clearly. When I was looking for that letter that he had written, they said that, that was how I saw it in the first article, that even the men's rights activist groups, they were like, all right, he said some things about men's rights, but at the same time, they had to condemn his actions toward Christy Mack completely. And let's jump over to Salon.com and continue onward. Christy Mack's claim that Jon Koppenhaver arrived at her house unannounced and held her hostage while he broke 18 bones in her face with his fists and sawed off her hair with a dull knife is true. There is nothing that contradicts her claim that she went in and out of consciousness while Koppenhaver looked through her social media profiles on her phone and punched or kicked her every time he found a post he didn't like. There is nothing that contradicts her claim that she might be dead if she hadn't escaped to her backyard while Koppenhaver looked for a sharper knife with which to kill her. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, in the report that could suggest that Christy Mack is at all responsible for the unspeakably horrifying assault she suffered at the hands of a domestic abuser. And that's really like the heart and soul of this one. Was she in an abusive relationship in the past with him? Yes. Did he majorly assault her? Yes. But the thing is, though, we have to stop blaming the victims. And we can't live in a world where we are going to be blaming the victims. And that thing that we were just reading there, once again, was from Salon.com. But the thing is to say about that, War Machine would go on to be charged with 34 different counts, whether it was various forms of assault, battery. He was charged with attempted murder, a charge with sexual assault, even though, as we said, he wasn't able to perform that. But I'm sure there are various forms of sexual assault. I do think I read in one source, or perhaps even heard on YouTube, that when he wasn't able to get hard, he began sexually assaulting her with his fingers, if I've recalled that correctly, but I don't have the source right in front of me. And the thing is, though, to say is, no matter what happened in the relationship, I mean, did she deserve 18 broken bones in her face, a ruptured liver, her hair cut off with a dull knife, the blade breaking when it struck into her skull? And she would have been dead if she hadn't been able to run for her life. The dull knife broke, so he went to get a sharper one, and that's what saved her. Absolutely horrible situation. After the assault on Christy Mack, some of the other UFC fighters, and just mixed martial artists, we should say, were talking about this one in a video from MMA TV Canada. And what they were saying is that, well, first let's start with what Ken Shamrock had to say. He said that he had experience with Jon Koppenhaver. He knew him in Los Angeles. And he talked about his destructive behavior. And there were not isolated incidents. They were not. And he even had an incident involved with one of his own family members. Ken Shamrock had an incident with one of his own family members and Jon Koppenhaver. And he's like, this guy should not be out on the streets. What he was talking about was getting a variant of rehab for him. He just said he shouldn't be out on the streets because he is doing very dangerous things. And at the trial on True Crime Daily, they were even talking about how he had abused 7 other people. Or we shouldn't say the word abuse. He had assaulted 7 other people, because when you say abuse, that almost sounds like there's some type of relationship going on. But what it seemed like was actually happening was, at one incident, some guy even looked at him the wrong way on the street, so he assaulted him. It's like he had been involved with numerous assaults on different people. And at that point, Shamrock might have actually had something genuine to say. He just shouldn't be out on the streets. And for the assault on Christy Mack, as well as her friend Corey, War Machine, Jon Koppenhaver, was given life in prison. The charge of attempted murder didn't hold, and he was found not guilty on that charge. And when even when they were just detailing some of these abuses that he did to Christy Mack, and like, I saw that attempted murder was one of the charges, and I was like, this is a very good opportunity for the prosecutors to put him in jail for life. I mean, attempted murder, you can definitely be put in jail for life. But he was found not guilty on the attempted murder charge and still received life in prison anyway. The only way I can think that the jury would find him not guilty on the attempted murder charges, as we said, he went to get a sharper knife to murder her. He did threaten to kill her, but because he was going to get a different knife and she escaped, the act of attempted murder hadn't taken place yet, and that's pure just legal spin, for lack of a better term. I mean, that's just legal spin. He definitely was contemplating murdering her. He threatened to murder her, and he received life in prison, and he would not be eligible for parole until he is 71 years old after serving at least 36 years in prison. And that's what Shamrock was talking about. He should be off the streets. And I think that if he needs any type of rehab, he will get that in 36 years in prison. Because you simply have to see that a lot of people who end up in prison have problems with impulse control. And I know that sounds very general, but it's just like, that's the heart and soul of the issue. So many people who end up in jail just cannot control their impulses. And when you have somebody like Jon Koppenhaver, War Machine, who was an MMA fighter, and he can't control his impulses, he seriously injures people. And he just does it over and over again. And the legal system is just like, they had to put some stop to that. I mean, I think it's a fair ruling life in prison, possibility of parole after 36 years. It's not about getting revenge on anybody. It's more about how he's just too destructive to be out in public. And he is too destructive to interact with people if he can't control his impulses, to the point where he sees something that he doesn't like, so he starts beating the crap out of somebody. Unacceptable. One of the things, though, that I would like to do now is just ask anybody, do you have any stories that you would like to share of either someone you know who has dealt with an abusive relationship, or maybe a personal story that you would like to share? I think that it's good to get the word out there. Christy Mack thought it was very good to share what was going on. And as you heard in that thing from TMZ and WebPro Daily, she wanted to share her story so people can see the reality of abusive relationships. And first and foremost, we cannot blame the victim. But that's all I have to say for now, and that's where we're going to have to leave it for this. And once again, if you have any sort of personal thing you would like to share in the comments section below, we would love to hear from you. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, drop some comments below. And until next time.